Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I'm delighted you can be with us today. My dear friends, by now I think most of us know that we came into these brief earth lives to grow spiritually, to raise our personal vibrations away from fear and toward ever more perfect love. And the kind of love we're talking about here is selfless. It's not dependent on anything that we receive or give, but it's just a perfectly joyous connection of hearts and minds. Love for the sake of love. And when we think about modern life, where is such perfect love more likely to come from for each of us? Well, from our pets, of course. You could be the most horrible person on the face of the earth, and you know that at least your dog will still love you. About 7 months ago, we entertained Karen Anderson as a Seek Reality guest, and her interview was a huge hit. If you haven't heard it, you might want to give it a listen. Karen is a wonderful animal communicator, and we talked that day about communicating with dogs and cats, both living and transitioned. It turns out she communicates with horses too, and at this point, we're scheduling most Seek Reality guests more than 6 months in advance. So the date that Karen and I set back in September is rolling around at last in late April. I'm excited to have her with us today. Karen is an award-winning animal communicator and medium who has been doing this wonderful work for more than 2 decades. She's written a couple of books and collaborated with others on their books. But my favorite of her efforts is The Amazing Afterlife of Animals, Messages and Signs from Our Pets on the Other Side. It came out in 2017, and that book has won a number of awards, and all of them, I'm telling you, were well-deserved. It's full of the kinds of happy stories and true stories that bereaved pet lovers desperately need. Karen, welcome. I'm so delighted to have you back with us.
Hi, Roberta. I am so excited to be here. I just absolutely adore your listeners. I think you have some of the most incredible and amazing followers, and I'm certainly one of them.
Aren't you sweet to say that? You know, it's true, really. I hear from a lot of listeners, and they are wonderful people. That's probably the thing that most keeps me this work is the fact that I hear from such terrific people. But let's tell us a little about you now. How did you learn that you had this amazing gift for communicating with our beloved, wonderful companion animals?
Well, you know, it was kind of a spiritual awakening, you could say. I had always been able to understand the animals when I was a small child, but I had forgotten those skills as I wasn't my family didn't support that. They didn't know what to do with that. They thought it was weird or strange or whatever. So they discouraged it. Unfortunately, darn it, don't do that to your kids.
No, don't do that to your kids. So you were little and you animals were talking to you?
Yes, and I thought everybody could do this. You know, I just thought everyone would understand. Yeah. I didn't know, you know, when you're little, you just think that's the way of the world. You just think that's the way things go. So, no, I didn't know it was unusual or different. But what happened was I started coming up with information about the pets and even deceased family members that a 5 or 6 year old child could not have known. And so it really scared my parents. They didn't know what to do, so they told me to stop it.
Yes, that's right.
Don't do that. You're scaring us. And I was never scared, even when I spoke to the spirits of my relatives. It was always happy experiences. It was wonderful memories. They were very loving and very kind. It was never spooky or scary or anything like that. I was just very intrigued by them because they were so loving to me. So between the animals talking to me and my departed relatives talking to me, I learned very quickly that most of the time I should keep that quiet, keep it to myself. So I did. I kept it to myself for many years. And it wasn't until I was in law enforcement, and that's where it all started snowballing, of all places for it to show up, right, Roberta?
Yes. Well, so you were helping law enforcement with as a psychic?
No, I was actually a police officer.
Were you really? And you're such a sweet person. I just can't envision it. Wow.
Yes, I was a deputy in Colorado in a little town by the name of Bailey. And that's where I had a spiritual awakening. Now picture this, very small town, mountain district. There's nothing for miles and miles except national forest, pine trees, and beautiful Rocky Mountains. And I would have to respond to any call for help by myself because it was a small department. I was usually the only one on duty when I was working, as the other officers were usually the only ones on duty.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. I know. So I would have to go to a call to the scene of whatever it was, domestic violence or robbery or whatever it was. And I would have to be very careful about my personal safety.
Oh, and my word.
Because of that, I developed a heightened sense of awareness. I started listening to that little voice in my head. I started listening to what and how people were talking to me, suspects and potential criminals. I started really paying attention to body language and just, the feeling, Roberta, you know how it is when you meet someone for the first time and you either really, really like them or you really, really don't?
Right, yes. I think we all have that sense, yes.
Yes, we've all been there. So
yes.
I started paying attention to that, and what happened is it developed into a sharpened sense of intuitiveness, and cops don't call it intuitive psychicness, they call it a gut feeling, but it's the same thing.
Yes.
It's the same. Cops are very, hardcore evidence. I don't believe in that woo-woo stuff, whatever. And I was kind of the same way too, but here I was a law enforcement officer, and I was discovering that I had psychic abilities, and they were actually very accurate. And the craziest thing happened, Roberta, get this. I was on the scene of a domestic violence call, and I was interviewing the victim, and she was a young girl. She was pregnant at the time, and her boyfriend had assaulted her and punched her in the stomach, if you can believe that.
Oh, my Lord.
I know. So I was interviewing her outside of the home, and my fellow officers were out looking for the suspect who fled on foot. So we were standing by her front porch when all of a sudden this little kitty comes walking out of her house. And, of course, I'm a cat lover, so I'm, look at the kitty, right away I'm paying attention to the cat. And she said, that's Smokey, and he's my baby, and I love him, and whatever. And so this little kitty, I watched him. He walked over to this little gardening shed, and he sat down, turned around, sat down, looked right at me, and I heard the words, inside.
Oh,
and I thought,
good.
What? Did that cat just tell me the bad guy is inside the shed? I mean, I was having like this no way moment, like this can't happen moment.
Wow.
And so sure enough, I went over to the shed and I ordered the suspect to come out with his hands up, and lo and behold, he was in there and he was hiding, and that shed had already been searched, so he must have double backed around and gone back in there after it had been searched.
Wow.
So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's
you can
wonderful
imagine.
Though. Think about it. That's wonderful.
I know.
What a smart kitty.
I know. And, this is what started happening to me. I was in total disbelief. I was in shock. I didn't tell anybody about it. Can you imagine turning in a police report that said, so I was on the scene of this crime, and a cat told me where the suspect was.
Right, I love it.
I was not about to admit to anyone that my confidential informant had 4 legs and a tail, right?
So think about what that says, Karen, about that cat. The cat knew why you were there, knew this guy was bad, who had hurt, hit her mistress or his mistress, and knew that the thing to do was to show you where he was. That boggles me that the cat knew all that, and obviously did know all that.
Well, it kind of boggled me too. I was in a state of, oh my gosh, what just happened here? And then it started happening more and more on other crime scenes with other animals. I was able to obtain kind of like eyewitness accounts from the resident pets.
Oh, wow. That's really
So
good.
I really got to be intrigued by this. I was blown away by it. So I started developing my skills even more, and I threw everything I could, all my energy and all my effort into learning how to do this because I thought, this is amazing, this is incredible, I can't even believe this.
No, wow.
And so that's kind of where it all started to snowball, and my abilities really, they resurfaced. I had an awakening. They resurfaced again after many, many years, and I think that happens to a lot of us. We have these abilities, we have our intuition, and just because of life and the way that society is, we kind of, they get buried. These abilities get covered up and buried, but they're in there.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're just right below the surface, and other times they're way down deep, just based on our belief systems and how we've been raised and our societal issues and challenges and whatever. And mine just happened to be right below the surface, so they all came bubbling up really fast. And it was just the right spiritual time for me. I was just right in that perfect moment where the universe was saying, hey, Karen, this is what you need to be doing. And I just ran with it. And it was a very pivotal point in my life. I ended up leaving law enforcement to pursue my psychic abilities full time.
Wow. That's a wonderful story. I love that story about the cat.
I know, right? So the cool part is now I get to combine my law enforcement background, which I loved and adored. I loved being a cop. I loved being in law enforcement. I didn't like all the report writing, and I didn't like going to court or any of that stuff. But I loved being a cop and responding to calls and helping people, so that was really the fun part of it. But now, as an evidential medium, I can speak to both pets and departed human spirits. I'm able to help law enforcement agencies with cold cases.
Well, that's wonderful. That's a whole other. All right, we just came up with another topic. A lot of pet parents who are listening now have fur babies that are dogs or cats, and I urge all of you, please stay with us today, but then go back and listen to our previous Seek Reality interview with Karen Anderson, and it was September 10th of 2018, if my records are right. And that was a great one. I'm telling you, I still hear about it. But please indulge me today because I've waited all this time to talk with Karen about my own fur baby, who happened to be a horse. When my babies were little, in fact, this horse was the same age as my middle child. I got this 6-month-old foal, actually colt at that point. He'd just been gelded, and I've waited all this time to talk to her about him. This was an amazing story. He and I bonded right away. I owned him until he was almost 30. Frankly, he's probably the nicest person that I have ever known. And tell me about horses. Tell me about communicating with horses. For people who aren't familiar with them, horses are some of the nicest people. It's astonishing how good they are.
And I'm always I have a special place in my heart for anyone who has had a relationship and had a horse in their as part of their life, because they are truly amazing creatures. They are some of the most high vibrational creatures on the earth. And what I mean by high vibrational is that they are ancient. They have this ancient wisdom to them. They have they have this ancestral nature about them that when you communicate with them, you realize that you're not just talking to, the horse out in the barn or the horse out in the stall. I mean, you're tapping in to eons and eons and eons of evolution and this incredible wisdom that the horses are able to share and bring forward and bring into a new light. I've learned so much from horses. Just to give you a little bit about what I have experienced, they are by far one of the most sensitive creatures I've ever communicated with, and I mean sensitive in the way of being so aware of their surroundings and aware of energy and the energy of the horses and the people around them. They can read energy better than anyone.
Oh, wow.
They are masters at reading us. They can read your mind when you're not even around them. That's how they can tap into you.
Oh.
That's how deeply connected our souls are with these incredible creatures. And they can, think about it, Roberta, they can sense when a mosquito lands on their flank. So imagine when our human bodies climb up on their backs in all of our clumsiness, and we clunk on them, and we have our saddles and all of our...
I know, our equipment, yes.
Yes. I mean, can you imagine just being this incredibly sensitive creature and having all of this stuff going on you? It's like, oh my gosh. In that, keeping that in mind, they also share with me how very confused they are by their human.
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
What I mean by that is I've heard from more horses that they get more mixed messages and confusing messages from their humans than just about any other creature, and I'll tell you why. Think about when we are in saddle. We are up there, perhaps we're taking a trail ride with our horse. We're not asking them to do anything specific or demanding. We're just walking along a trail, maybe with some fellow riders, or maybe we're just alone. But while we're riding with our horse, we are shifting around in the saddle. Our body is moving around from side to side, so we're sending them physical cues. Our legs are dangling and hitting them along the sides of their body. Our hands are holding the reins, sending signals throughout the reins, if either too tight or too loose or whatever our hands are doing.
Yes.
And then think about where our minds go when we're riding. We might be thinking about what we're going to make for dinner tonight, or company that's coming in town next week, or gosh, I have a birthday party I have to go to at 6 o'clock. I have to be home to get ready. We have all of these things going on in our minds. Plus, I don't know about you, Roberta, but when I'm with my horses, I do a lot of soul searching. So I'm asking, like, even myself a lot of questions, like, what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? What is my goal? What do I need to be doing with my life and in this world and as a being of light? And I get, like, really philosophical when I'm around my horses. They just bring that out in me. So
yes.
Imagine this horse is taking all of this in like a sponge, like a gigantic sponge. Can you imagine how confusing this is for them?
The thing is, yes, I can. The thing is, Beau would prefer to be driven, actually. My horse's name was Gamay Beaujolais because my husband he was growing vinifera wine grapes at the time, and that's a kind of wine grape, and he was a dark liver chestnut, so it was sort of a reasonable name, I guess. So we just called him Beau. But he loved to be driven. He didn't like to be ridden nearly as much. In fact, I saddle trained him. He was always very careful of me. He literally would move under me to make sure that I was always going to stay safe. But up until the age of 8, whenever I let a friend ride him, no matter how good a rider this person was, he never did anything wrong, but he had that person on the ground within 2 minutes. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, no.
You couldn't say he misbehaved. He just somehow made sure that they fell off. And it got to be a joke with us that he was like that. But then my daughter, who was his age, almost exactly, she was about 6 months old when he was 6 months old. When she was 8, she decided she wanted to start riding and have a show horse. And he was actually a very high-quality Morgan. He was a good show horse, actually, too. But she wanted to ride him. I was scared to death to put her on his back. We started on a long line. You know how you do. She was the first person he ever allowed to have her ride, and he did just with her what he did with me. He took care of her. And she got a lot of blue ribbons on him, actually. That was sort of their fun. But isn't that – they're so smart, and they're wise.
My gosh.
As you point out, they're wise. If you really know a horse and the horse knows you and you're comfortable, always comfortable with one another, they're so, you look in their eye and you know you're looking into, it's like looking into the eye of a human being. There's a lot going on in that mind. It's amazing.
There is. Oh my God, that's so true. And I think they're smarter than most of us, honestly. I mean,
right. In some ways.
And I'm putting myself in there too. I mean, I feel outsmarted and outwitted by horses more times than I can count.
Yes, but they're kind. I think that all the unkindness has been bred out of them. So when you find one that doesn't seem to be kind, you know that one was really abused as a baby or as a very young horse, because I think every horse I've ever met was a very decent human being, really.
Yeah, I would agree. And I will also say that, sadly, horses are some of the most frustrated creatures, because more so than cats, more so than dogs, horses get passed around from person to person more than anyone else. And they have, imagine being just in your barn or in your corral or in your pasture hanging out with your buddies, and all of a sudden somebody shows up and loads you in a trailer and takes you away.
That's right. And that happens to them all the time.
All the time.
This is something that I want to share, this wonderful communication dream. I couldn't be there when he was put down. He was almost 30, and I was with my children at church, my grandchildren, and I didn't want him to suffer. I said, go ahead. And then I was desperately upset. So the first communication I got from him was this. I had walked out into the lobby of the church, and I was crying. And when I walked back in, feeling a little better, there on the screen behind the minister who was giving his sermon was a gigantic picture. It was fall. Gigantic picture of a bow grazing in a field. It looked exactly like him. And next to him was a gray horse who looked just like a friend of mine's horse that had passed shortly before. Most amazing thing. I took a picture of it. I couldn't believe it. He was telling me he was okay immediately after his death. But then, so I was still upset. A couple of nights later, I had this amazing dream. We were driving in the wood, and very vividly, we were driving in the woods where he and I had always driven for so many years, and having a wonderful time. And all of a sudden, coming over the hill was a diesel truck. So I pulled him off quickly into the bushes, very narrow road, held his head as you do to sort of try to make him feel safe so he wouldn't bolt. And let the truck go past. Then we were happily driving again, and the second thing happened, another truck. So I had to hurriedly get him off the road and hold his head, and he was, I held him right to my chest, hugged his head, and he was fine. The third time we drove, there was another truck coming, and I woke up before I saw it. But I could hear it, and I could see the smoke coming. Diesel trucks, that sort of truck. And I woke up, I said, what the heck was all that about? Because it was clearly but then I realized what it was, and this speaks to what you just said. I brought him home when he was 6 months old, and we moved from Massachusetts when he was already old to Florida. He came with us. I had him there the whole time and was with him. Then we moved to Texas, and sure enough, I stayed there with him, and I kept him until he died, and he was thanking me with that dream. Yes. Each of those trucks was that calamity that most are a new place, but I stayed with him his whole life, and he was thanking me for that. Isn't that extraordinary?
It is, and I'm getting goosebumps and chills right now because I hear so many things about horses and the power of their energy and the bond that they forge with their humans, and it's like words don't describe it. If you have never experienced before, the human language doesn't give justice to what it's like, but it's truly magical. It is something. I've been fascinated with horses since I was a little girl. I had all the horse statues in my room and collected them and all that.
Yeah, me too. Right.
And every year I would ask Mom and Dad for a horse for Christmas, and every year I would look out in my driveway, and there was never a horse there.
Oh, that's sad.
But I know, but I kept asking, and one day I decided I was older and got a horse for myself, so it was, really a long time in waiting for that dream to come true. But it is something so unfathomable if you haven't experienced it. if you have experienced it, you're probably sitting in your chair right now going, yep, I know what she's talking about. Yep,
yeah.
Yep.
People don't get it. They think horses are recreational equipment. Horses are like the best friend you'll ever have. And if you really bond with your horse, you will never want to give that horse up. That's the problem, because they live a long time. But, you could take them with you. I took Bo with me. We didn't take any other horses, but we did take him.
Yes, and I have a 30-something-year-old gelding right now, and for those who don't know, a gelding is a stallion that has been neutered, and they usually do that because stallions are hard to handle, and after a horse is gelded, they tend to be easier to handle. But I have a 30-something gelding. His name is Toby, and I don't know exactly how old he is, but I'm guessing somewhere between 30 and 35. So if you're wondering, if you're wondering how long horses can live, they can live 30, 35, 40. There's even some 45 years old. They can live a very long time. That's such a commitment there. And I am of the type of person like you, Roberta, that once they are with me, that's it. That's their forever home. They stay with me. Even if I move, if I get married, if I change jobs, they stay with me forever.
I agree with you. That's what I would do, which is one reason I don't have a horse now. One of the things I decided after that communication dream was that I was not going to ride or drive a horse again until I get to ride and drive him again, and which I will do. In fact, here's something, I don't know if I've talked about this, but my primary spirit guide, Thomas, he lived in the 18th century, so he knows horses, and he knew about Bo. And one day when I was communicating with him through a medium, which I don't do anymore, but I did then, I said, you know what? Why don't you bring Bo when you come to my bedside when it's time for me to go home? And he said, it's already been arranged. Nice. Apparently at night when I would meet with them, I thought up the idea that I wanted to ride out on Bo, and he said, I'm going to get to do that. Isn't that amazing and wonderful?
I love it. You'll love this story, too. I had 4 horses at one time. Now I only have 2. But when one of my horses was getting ready to transition, she was a very stubborn mare. Her name was Patience. And she was,
funny.
She was named that before I got her. And Roberta, the interesting thing is that Patience is one of my life themes. So I thought there's no coincidence here when I purchased her many, many years ago that her name was Patience. I was like, oh, isn't this appropriate? But she was a very stubborn gal. We went on many adventures together. We had a very, very close bond. But boy, oh boy, Patience had to have things her way. And even when it came time for her transition, I knew that her time was coming close, and I told her that I would help her when she was ready to leave her body and go to the other side. And I made it very clear to her that I was going to be having the veterinarian come out on Monday. This was on a Sunday. And I said, I know you're ready to go. The appointment is tomorrow. And I was out in the field, and I was just, standing with her and loving on her and telling her how much I loved her. So the next morning, I get up and I go out there, and she had already passed. So even in transition, Patience had to have it her way. She was not going to wait around. She was not going to do it on my terms. She was going to do it her way, and you're going to love, there's a little bit of the frosting on this story, is she chose the most impossible place to get to on my property as she could. She was so surrounded by pine trees and forest growth and bushes and logs and stuff.
Yeah,
it was completely ridiculous trying to get her out of there.
Yes, yeah, that's really funny.
So she went on her own terms, her own way, and boy, I'll tell you what, that girl is, she's an amazing force still in my life, and she helps gather up all the horse spirits that I'm going to be talking to, and I still work very closely with her. She's one of my animal guides that I work with, and she hasn't changed. She's still just as stubborn as always.
So people who have a horse, or actually a dog or cat too, that they want to, you can communicate with living animals too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just those who've passed.
Correct.
And so what, people then can ask questions of their living pets. How come you won't eat tuna, or whatever it is the issue is, and you'll get answers from the pets about how they feel and what they're doing and what they want.
Right, and the one thing to remember is clients come to me for all kinds of reasons. Most of my work right now is afterlife because of the popularity of my book, The Amazing Afterlife of Animals. So, of course,
Right.
they've read that book and they all want to get messages from their pets on the other side, which is great. But I also connect with animals who are alive and well. I handle behavior issues, health concerns, end-of-life issues, just people checking in to see if their pets are, if the medication is working, what their pain levels are. Sometimes I work with animals that are having fear or anxiety or aggression issues. I mean, you name it, it's all across the board.
Wow. All right, well, talk about how people can reach you. We'll say this a couple of times. Someone wants to talk to their pet, whether the pet is transitioned or the pet is with us. How would they reach you?
Well, the best way to reach me is through my website, which is very simple. It's KarenAnderson.net. No different spelling there, just normal, Karen Anderson with an O.net. And there's all kinds of information on there. If you're new to animal communication, there is an FAQ page that has a lot of Q&A on there with some of the most common questions I get, like how long have you been doing this? How many animals have you communicated with? I get asked that all the time.
How many? How many is it?
Yes, it's kind of frightening, and I'm totally aging myself, but it's almost up to 19,000.
No, really? Oh,
yes.
I was thinking 1900. Oh my goodness.
19,000, and I've been communicating with pets professionally for over 20 years now. And what is so cool about this is I still have some of my original clients. We're still connected with each other. They still have sessions with me. I mean, this has just been such an amazing experience because it has animal lovers are the best people in the world, in my opinion.
Yes.
And, you know, truly, it doesn't get any better than a person who loves and adores their pets. But I was thinking about all the things that have happened to me over the years in regarding horses, and I thought, what do I want to share with Roberta's listeners? And this is the one story that came to me, and it's so special. I was connecting with the spirit of a departed horse. Now, this was an ancient horse. This, in physical life, this horse's name was Shiloh. And in connecting with this horse, I had one of those out-of-body experiences where I was actually riding alongside him. I wasn't riding him, but I was almost like on this imaginary, invisible horse riding alongside him. Yes, and he was showing me in this out-of-body experience, he was showing me how to ride. He was showing me where to put how to shift my energy and how to focus my mindset and my intention, and how important it was to honor the horse that I was engaging with, and to let them be fully in their body and to lead me instead of me leading the horse. And so I was getting all of this incredible information from Shiloh, and he went on to tell me the most beautiful story I have ever heard, and it still stays with me today. I was asking him about the end of life for horses, what it's like, and what he could tell me, you know, when they're preparing to leave their body. And this goes to even horses out in the wild Mustangs and the ancestors of horses, just going way, way back in time. And he explained to me that there is a time that he referred to at the end of their life where they are preparing to leave their body. They know their time is coming. They know they're accepting of that their time is coming. They don't stress about it like we do. They're very accepting that their physical life is ending because they know that their spiritual life will begin when their physical life ends.
They know that?
Yes, they know that.
Wow.
And Here's what he said to me. He said that the time between when they know they're ready to leave and the moment that they actually transition out of their body, he said that that is a very sacred time, and he called it the twilight time. He said that's our twilight time, the time where we're getting ready to leave our physical body. He said that animals will even zoom out of their physical body before it's their time, just to kind of, get used to that feeling, or kind of dip their toes in the water to test the temperature kind of a thing, just to test it out. So there's this out-of-body experience for them as their twilight time approaches, and they know that they're going to be leaving their body. And he said that when they share this twilight time with us, their human companion, that is the most special and sacred moment, and we should honor that, because normally and out in the wild and in the animal kingdom, animals usually go off by themselves to transition, to leave their body. They go off, they separate themselves from the herd. They don't want to bring in any predators. They don't want to be seen in this vulnerable state, so they'll go off by themselves, and they'll pass away either from age or illness or exposure to the elements. So he described to me that this twilight time is so sacred and so special that when you have a pet, whether it be a dog, a cat, or a horse, that shares that moment with you, that is like the biggest blessing you can have, to share that twilight time with them. And that has stuck with me so long. I no longer stress about that time. It's a sacred time. He says it's a time of celebration. It's a time to honor who this creature was in your life, and all of the wonderful memories that they brought you, and all the wonderful, beautiful lessons that you learned together. He really changed my whole outlook, because we always as humans want to cry and just be sad and agonize over the loss, but he really changed my mind, and I wanted to share that with you because I knew you would appreciate that coming from this incredible horse spirit.
Oh, yes. Oh, I guess I wish everybody could have the opportunity to have a horse for a friend. Not even if you don't ride, even if all you do is hang around with them, because they're wonderful people to hang around with, and they're loving and accepting and wise. The most important word to me about how a horse thinks is that they're very wise. They're wise about themselves, about the world, about people, and patient with us. I mean, your friend Patience, but Bo was very patient with me. I know I was often clueless to him, but what a beautiful experience this has been, just sharing our love for horses and as people, as the best people there are. I'm very grateful to you that you've been able to do that with me, because really most people I know don't even know anything about horses or care about them. And it's been now years. Bo died 15 years ago. So, 10 plus years ago now. So I don't even think of myself as a horse person anymore, although I was from the age of 5. But Karen, you have such a wonderful life that you get to spend time talking with. How many thousands did you say?
Almost 19,000.
Oh, my word.
What a wonderful
way to spend your life.
I have a fast, cute story for you about what a horse told. A couple of cute, fast stories. Do I have time?
Yes. Oh, of course. Yes.
Okay. So many, many years ago, when I was giving a demonstration of animal communication to a horse club, a riding club. This is for a women's riding group. It was here in Spokane, Washington, where I live. And I was communicating with one of the horses in the group there, and they asked me what the horse's favorite treat was. Well, the horse showed me a banana, and I hesitated because it's a banana. You were expecting like a carrot or an apple or, a little horse cookie or something. I wasn't expecting a banana, so I was really embarrassed, and I was put on the spot. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I say? What do I say? And so I finally just said, oh, this sounds really weird, but your horse is showing me a banana. Well, she started laughing so hard, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that." Well, apparently, when she would go on her trail rides, she would always pack a brown paper bag lunch, and she always took a banana with her. That was like her go-to thing to put in that bag. Well, the horse would see her eating this banana every single time they would go on a trail ride, and he just assumed that it had to be the most wonderful treat in the world because Mom ate it all the time.
And Mom never shared? That's not nice. I don't know if they could even eat a banana, but isn't that funny? My.
It was so funny. I just got a chuckle out of that because it's like, who would think, right? So it's not just, they don't answer me necessarily the way I would expect them to answer. I asked that horse, what's your favorite treat? And it said banana. So, you have to, they communicate in their own way. And in their own time. And then one more really quick story. I was communicating with another horse, and the rider was having problems, a lot of behavioral problems with the horse, and I was trying to figure out what was wrong, and just, balking at the gate and, not cooperating and not asking to do what the person wanted it to do, and, just really kind of being fussy and argumentative, and it's like, what's going on? Well, the horse kept showing me upside down numbers.
Why?
I know, I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm like, what in the world? And so I'd ask it again, what is this? What are you showing me? And it just said to me, I don't know, but upside down numbers. And I saw numbers upside down. Well, get this. I'm talking to the client and I'm saying, your horse is showing me upside down numbers. Does this mean anything to you? And she says, oh my gosh, Karen. Oh my gosh. She said, we are trying to sell our business, but our accountant was embezzling from us, and we're actually in the red instead of being in profit. We're in debt because they forged and fudged all the numbers. So now we can't sell our business because basically the numbers were upside down. Do you get that analogy? It was right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
I couldn't believe it. So the reason why the horse was acting up is because Mom and Dad were so stressed about their business being upside down that the horse was pulling all that stress, didn't know what the problem was, thought they were mad at him, and was misconstruing all of that negative energy that was swirling around. So I had to share with the client how to be very clear when they were around the horse, with the horse, to be very specific about their goals and what they wanted to accomplish, and to leave their business stuff at home. But isn't that incredible?
What an interesting story. Oh, the poor guy.
It was amazing. It was shocking to me because I'm trying to put it all together and make sense of it. Of course, I look at upside down numbers and I don't know what that means. I do now, but I didn't know what that meant at the time.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when you look at the whole picture, when you take in everything that was going on, it made sense as to why he was acting up and why they were having so much trouble with him.
Right. Oh, Kara, this has been so much fun. We're going to do this again, and we'll talk about your cold case work. I think that would be great.
Awesome. I'd love it.
If that's all right with you, consider yourself hugged. I'm so glad we could do this. And everyone, I'm so sorry we've come to the end of our time. This has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. I'm delighted you could be here with Karen and me. And please never forget that you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began. You never will end. And when you really get what that means, it's going to transform your life for the better. Next week, our guest will be Father Nathan Castle. Father Castle is a Catholic priest of the Dominican Order who has served as a campus minister at several universities, and he lives now in a community of Dominican men and women serving the University of Arizona at Tucson. This is fascinating. I didn't even know they did this, but he's been doing what is actually very, very important work, and there's much too little talked about, and he's been doing it for almost 20 years. I'm really astonished the church lets him do this. He helps people who have gotten lost to complete their transition. And I'm thrilled, frankly, to find someone I can even talk to about this, because I know it's an important issue, and I don't even know anyone else who does this. But I have found Dr. Castle, and I'm excited to be able to share his work with you. So please be sure to join us next week. And this week we've been talking for the second time with a wonderful pet communicator, and as you see, a wonderful human being named Karen Anderson. She was last with us in September of 2018, and go back and listen to that if you haven't heard it, because, as I say, it's one of the best Seek Reality episodes ever. She talked then about dogs and cats, and this week she has been sharing my love of horses. She's written several books, but her most important book is the award-winning The Amazing Afterlife of Animals, Messages and Signs from Our Pets on the Other Side. It's won awards, but the best award I can give to it is that we've included it in the bibliography that we're about to revise for all of my fun books, and I'm very choosy about what we add. So I just think this is a book everyone should read. And as a personal note, I got to tell you about one of the most important people who's ever been in my life, and his name was Bo, and I had him from the age of 6 till he was almost 30, and I'll never have another horse till I get to ride out on him. So you'll know if you hear that I've died, you'll know how I got to go home. Isn't that fun? Everyone, as you know, my nonfiction books are Liberating Jesus, My Thomas, The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, The Fun of Growing Forever, The Fun of Living Together, and this fall, The Fun of Loving Jesus, Embracing the Christianity that Jesus taught. For young children, of course, there's The Fun of Meeting Jesus. You can order all these books through bookstores or on Amazon.com. Please, if you want to talk about anything at all, any of my books, things that, maybe I hear from people who have found my videos and they ask questions about the videos. If you want to talk about anything at all, you can always contact me through the contact block on robertagrimes.com. I answer every email. It can take me, I used to say, if you don't hear within 24 hours, send flowers. But now it's if you don't hear within 4 or 5 days, maybe time to send flowers. Just please make sure you give me your right address, because I hate it when they bounce. Past episodes of Seek Reality are available on webtalkradio.net and in a number of other places, whatever's comfortable for you, realrevolutionradio.com, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and on a number of stations. The wonderful people at Dream Vision 7 Radio are really in that group, other than my home at webtalkradio.net. They're the most fun. I urge you to look us up there, because you'll just love the other hosts as well on Dream Vision 7. More and more people now tell me they just listen through the Seek Reality app. You can find it for free in the iTunes App Store. And of course, if you ever wonder where you can hear Seek Reality right now, just go to robertagrimes.com and click the radio tab. If you enjoy these weekly conversations, you might also want to check out my blog at robertagrimes.com. We're having a lot of fun there now, actually. We've been delving deeply into Christianity for a while and into the teachings of Jesus. And I hear from a lot of people every week. It's just by coincidence, but we post on Sunday mornings, and there are people who say now that they do that instead of go to church, and it works as well. Oh, my goodness, I don't want to be in that position, but that's what they're telling me now. So just come in. If you feel that you want to do it, go ahead and post a comment. I'm eager to hear what you have to think, or send me an email about what I've been blogging about. Meanwhile, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy and make the most of this coming week in our one reality, knowing that you, in particular, are a powerful, eternal being, and you, most of all, are perfectly loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.